prophecies and conspiracies. Peering into darkness is what we do. Derek and Sharon Gilbert break it all down for you.
AI Elvis sounds particularly joyful today. Now the spring has arrived here in the Ozarks. Welcome. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert. Welcome to our living room. Of course, we are just relaxing. Derek's in his
My
in his favorite chair.
Yes, the big leather recliner here. The big red chair, which is now my base of operations. And I could do a podcast.
I was just about to say that very thing.
Wow, moment of inspiration.
Yeah.
Wow.
Copyright. Trademark.
In the meanwhile, make sure you take a moment to download our free app to your smartphone or tablet.
Absolutely. But may I just say, big red chair, that's an IU thing.
Oh.
Because the chair that Bobby threw
That's right.
was
That's
red,
right.
which is why there's a bakery in Bloomington called the Red Chair Bakery.
Brilliant.
Which had great stuff.
IU, Indiana University, of course.
Yeah. Big
Sadly,
red chair.
They missed out on the tournament this year. We're in the middle of March Madness, also first full day of spring today.
True. Well, yesterday was actually the first.
First full day? Okay. So spring is now in full effect. And
Well, I
the
guess
birds
you
are
could
happy.
say today is the first full because it was about 9 in the morning yesterday when the equinox occurred.
So I was
to
correct.
Time of day. Yeah. Well, if you're going to, define things according to words.
Yes, and words matter. Words
They do.
matter. Well, I'm not a huge sports fan anymore. I used to be. But I do enjoy the NCAA basketball tournament because you get wonderful Cinderella story, events like High Point defeating Wisconsin.
Well, with a name like High Point, you would think that they would score the high points, but
And they absolutely did. Yeah, they defeated Wisconsin. And there were some others that came close. Wright State gave, and I forget who they played, but Wright State is up in Michigan.
They played wrong.
Were a lower seed. Yeah, wrong state, and lost. But it gave them a good run. St. Louis University was the underdog when they played Georgia on Thursday, and they beat Georgia by about 30 points.
Go SLU.
So SLU will, and I love them because their coach and their top player, Robbie Avila, coach Josh Schertz, came from Indiana State, which is in Terre Haute, which is where my dad was born. Dad says the little place there in South 3rd Street should be, he used to say, should have been a national shrine. Dad had a good sense of humor.
I'm sure it is.
But Terre Haute was where his ancestors settled around 1820. So I can claim to be a Hoosier by blood. And St. Louis University.
And by marriage.
And by marriage, yes. So St. Louis University goes up against Michigan today. Michigan, probably one of the two favored teams to win the whole thing, along with Duke. So SLU's got a tough job today. But Robbie Avila is like 6'11", 240 pounds, wears goggles, and looks like a nerd.
Oh, my God.
So his nicknames, they've got these wonderful nicknames for him because he's a white kid. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah.
Larry Nerd.
Oh, instead of Bird.
Yeah. And a number of others. He's a really skilled player. He's not the most athletic player, but like Larry Bird, he plays with a lot of intelligence. So it'll be interesting to see what happens today. I don't expect SLU to win, but they had a really good season. And
with IU out of the running, I do like basketball.
Yeah.
I love college basketball and high school basketball. Right. Not a fan of pro ball. Just not.
No, especially since the analysts came in and they said, if you shoot a lot of three-point shots, the statistics show that over the course of the game, you'll score more points than if you play the way they played in the 80s and 90s, the Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan era, where it was a more physical game and you tried to work the ball inside for a closer shot.
Well, let me ask you a question. We just recently had Colonel Bob Maginnis, Lieutenant Colonel Bob Maginnis on the Skywatch TV show. And you and I got to, and Joe Horn and the family, we got to ask him some really, I think, pertinent questions given that AI seems to be all over the place. And that's Bob's latest book
Right.
is on the rise of AI.
Right. And he's got a forthcoming book. His last book, I don't think got as much attention as it deserved, which is AI for Humanity's Future. His next book, which is available for pre-sale now, comes out in about a month and is titled The New AI Cold War.
Yes, and I agree. And this is why I bring it up. Think about the future. If AI is going to become heavily involved in warfare, in many ways, sports games are friendly warfare. In fact, the Olympics themselves have become, you might say, politically charged. Imagine cyber players, actual physical cyber players, robots, that because some of the stuff they're showing these robots out of China and other countries are doing, because they're putting a lot of money into the study.
Right.
They move in sync and like dancers. They look like Fred Astaires.
Well,
now imagine them being able to play basketball.
Yeah, and that would be really something to see. And I imagine we will see exhibitions of things like that here in the near future. And where AI comes into play here is, of course, when before artificial intelligence, when you created a robot, you had to write lines of code, many lines of code, thousands, millions of lines of code to give the robot instructions on how to respond in
if this, then that.
Exactly. Under AI, the neural networks, the black boxes, are learning and adapting. And especially, and this is where I read a very interesting op-ed piece by Peter Thiel, who's the founder of the X Prize and the co-founder, now director of Singularity University.
Oh, yeah.
He is a transhumanist who is looking at this AI revolution and the development of robotics and nanotechnology is a good thing that will allow humans to overcome the limits of our biology and effectively live forever, or at least live radically extended lifespans. He visited a robotics company, a startup in Silicon Valley called Figure. And he said that their business model is not to roll these out too soon so that they're not ready for prime time, as it were. But what makes them different from old-style robots powered by lines of code is that being networked, these robots can be put into a variety of situations formerly or currently occupied by humans. Workers on a factory floor, domestics doing house cleaning or watching after children, drivers, as the baby boomers age. I'm the tail end of the baby boom. I'm 64, but I've lost the ability to drive safely because of my neurological issues.
And you're not alone. There are a lot in your age group that are dealing with limiting, self-limiting
similar physical conditions, whether it's eyesight or cognitive issues or just physical limitations. And yet we don't want to be limited to, being stuck in a rehabilitation center or a nursing home. I want to go to the store. I want to go to the movies or whatever. So if you can hire a cab, and right now they've got self-driving vehicles. The cyber cab is just coming out now, but you've got Waymo, which has its own issues because apparently Waymo's AI is tied to servers in China. So the Chinese are collecting all this data about the Waymo, the Waymo cabs as they drive around. Anyway, say you put a robot in that situation instead, where it maybe plugs into the car and then drives it through its AI, and being networked, as soon as one of them learns a particular skill or fact, all of the bots that are part of this network learn that skill. So you can train one bot to do a particular job on the factory floor, and then suddenly you've got 1,000 workers who know how to do that same thing.
And the basic instructions to many of these algorithms, these AIs, they understand I can just type out a sentence, and it can be a very skeletal instruction. And these AIs, Grok is an example. You and I were just recently down at the Jim Baker show.
Right.
And we sat with Jim for quite a while talking about AIs and what's coming. And I showed him a birthday greeting I had created through Grok for a friend of ours. And it was President Trump coming in with balloons and saying happy birthday to our friend. And all I had to do was ask Grok in very simple, create a video of President Trump carrying birthday balloons, and saying happy birthday to, you're a really great guy. And I gave the text. And within a minute or less, I had the video.
Yeah.
I have no training in AI. I just told it in plain language. And Jim was shocked.
Well, yeah. And then I showed him the videos that I've created for intros, for A View from the Bunker, and for the monthly roundtable discussion I have with Doug Van Dorn, Dr. Judd Burton, Brian Godawa, called Iron and Myth. And both of these videos are about 45 seconds long, and they look like well-directed, cinematic almost, commercials, that a movie or television director would have created, with actors, AI created, the voiceover, AI generated. In one case, a friend of ours, Kevin Trotman, sent the song, the theme for Iron and Myth, which was created using an AI program. And there's one out there that I've used. In fact, AI Elvis at the beginning of our program here as from a program called Suno, S-U-N-O.
With plain English instructions.
Plain English instructions. The videos that I created for those intros took me maybe 2 hours total, and that was the total time in inputting the text prompts. And I used a couple of different programs. One, I think I used Grok to generate the video, and in the other, I think I used Adobe.
Oh, Firefly?
Yeah. Part of the Adobe Creative Suite. And then taking those videos into Final Cut Pro and putting it all together. Took a couple of hours, each one. Now, if somebody had actually used human actors, especially for the Iron and Myth one, because it shows medieval knights with the, like crusaders with the cross jerking over their armor on horses, riding up, looking at one another, seeing the enemy coming in the distance, and then riding into battle. That would have taken a couple of weeks.
And it would have been very expensive. But even if you did it with CGI back in the day, it could take a week or more.
Right.
With very specific instructions through a learned language that was computer language.
Right.
These large language models, they have figured out all of our English and other language instructions.
Yes.
You and I can look like we are brilliant when we just type in a few.
Exactly, yeah. Show me a knight dressed like a crusader on horseback, 3 other similarly dressed knights ride up alongside of him. Then the second clip was, the 2 in the middle turn and look at one each other as though knowing they're about to ride into battle. Then seen from behind as the 4 horsemen ride off into the oncoming horde of enemy. Just simple, plain English instructions. Jim Baker was, as you said, shocked. He was stunned.
Astonished. Yes,
he wants us to come back and show those videos and some other clips that demonstrate to his viewing audience how advanced AI is. But really, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
This is what we can do.
Right.
Just with, very inexpensive or free tools. But imagine a setting where an oligarchy want to put up their man to become king of the world, and you do so using tools that are far more advanced than we know anything about. And that's why I get to Bob Maginnis, because he's got an inside track. He studied some of this at MIT.
Exactly. I mean, Bob he's a remarkable guy. He's He was an airborne ranger infantry officer, graduated from the U.S. Military Academy, the Naval Postgraduate School, Command and General Staff College Defense Language School, the Army War College's strategy course, and then he goes to MIT.
Yeah.
Recently, just on his own dime.
I know.
To study AI. And he's got a third book on AI coming out in early 2027 called The Final Algorithm. Yeah. Think about, Ryan Peterson's book, The Final Nephilim, The Final Algorithm, which deals with how AI relates to biblical prophecy.
Let me mention something that I have observed for years and not really talked about it, at least not on any of the programs, and I'm not even sure if I've mentioned it to you. I think I mentioned it to Tom Horn years ago. But if you take a look at the original Singularity University logo, they've adapted it a bit differently now. And in fact, there's another logo that looks nothing like this. It looks like a portal. The newer one. But the original one, I will show you, sitting across the room from you.
Yes.
It looks like a snake entering through a woman's thighs.
Yes. Whether they intended that or not, I have to believe that somebody looking at that was like, oh, yeah, that's...
No, it's just we created 4 colors that are sort of, shaped like a shield, and then we put the S for the singularity.
Yeah,
really?
It
that's what I have always seen when I've looked at it.
No, I agree with you. I agree. Because they're looking at this as a new form of
Right. There's
creation.
the one that I talked about looking like a portal.
Right. Yeah, I've seen that too.
Or like a threshing floor.
I think I've used both of those in presentations. It's been several years now since I've done a presentation on transhumanism, but I did, in fact, I addressed a course at Eastern Illinois University, a class there at the behest of the professor, Dr. Wahik Sabi.
Oh, yes. Good
Wafik.
Wafik.
Yeah.
He's from Egypt.
Wonderful man.
But went to our church.
Yeah, First Baptist Church there in Charleston, Illinois. Talented musician as well. And he taught a course on world technology. And it was indeed a very multicultural class. And as I addressed the class and how transhumanism is effectively a religion, it's a sci-fi religion that believes we will achieve salvation and immortality through what Tom Horn called it the grain or grin technologies.
Oh, yes,
I think grain is a better acronym.
Yeah, I think so
genetics, robotics, artificial
AI.
Intelligence, and nanotechnology. Yeah. And the Chinese students thought this is a great thing because they're coming from a culture that is atheistic. So they believe that without this kind of salvation, then once you die, that's it. There's just nothing. You just cease to be. There was a young lady there who was from the area, and she said she was Baptist, and she saw what was going on here and said, "No, I understand where you're coming from." And there were others. There was a young man and a young woman who were there from India. So again, it's a very multicultural class and
highly intelligent.
And again, they didn't perceive any danger to this as I took questions afterwards. And I've learned a few things since I think
it was probably 2013 or
2013 or thereabouts. Yeah. So we were still kind of early in this journey, and I've learned a bit since then. If I had to do it again, I think my presentation would have been more sharply focused. But still, there were some who got it, others who thought it was a good thing. And that's kind of where the world is at. You get people like the Chinese who are developing this and think it's wonderful. The transhumanists who think that this is a means to salvation. What's really interesting is that one of the leaders in the transhumanist movement, one of the most prominent, is Peter Thiel, who is the co-founder of PayPal, its first CEO, if I recall correctly. A big supporter of President Trump. He'd spoken at least one of the recent Republican national conventions, and he is the co-founder of Palantir Technologies.
Yeah, if you have ever read The Lord of the Rings, Palantir should sound familiar to you. And if you've only seen the movies, you should have heard of Palantir.
Yeah.
It's a seeing stone.
Which were given out as gifts, we'll put that in air quotes, from the Dark Lord Sauron to the human kings of Middle Earth to allow them to communicate, ostensibly to allow them to communicate with one another and to see what was going on in their own realm. But it was mainly so that Sauron could look in on them, but then also influence them, because whenever they contacted him or were in communications with him, his power drew them in. And so the steward of Gondor, which was the last or most powerful of the kingdoms of Middle Earth, where Aragorn, who is essentially represents Jesus in the books and the movies, where he was returning to become the rightful king. And the steward of Gondor, Denethor, had fallen under the influence of Sauron to the point where he was just nihilistically, all is lost, we're all going to die.
And he wanted the ring for himself.
He wanted the ring of power for himself. So that, but of course, not understanding that it was not a ring of power, it was a ring of slavery.
Exactly. Yeah. All those rings were slave. And then seeing stones also helped for the AI in charge, if you want to think of Sauron as the AI in charge, or the image of the beast, or the beast himself.
Yeah. And that also drew the wizard Saruman, who had, again, from the class of characters, along with Gandalf and, the character played by Sylvester McCoy. Starts with a B.
Yeah, I know. I'll think of it in a minute.
Yeah. So the brown. Anyway, those represented angels. Radagast. There we go. They were the equivalent of angels in Tolkien's world.
Yeah. If you don't know that, read the Silmarillion. It's all in there. Explains a lot of it.
And Saruman had been corrupted by, use of the Seeing Stone with Sauron, and Saruman thought that somehow he would overthrow the Dark Lord Sauron and take his place. Just like, we see hints in the Bible that there's conflict and competition between the members of the fallen realm. Anyway, that's the backstory of Palantir, which is why it's so ironic that Peter Thiel named his company Palantir. It's a data mining company that uses AI to synthesize data, correlate data, and then come up with recommendations. Palantir and the AI developed by Anthropic called Claude, being used by the U.S. military to identify targets and develop firing solutions for the U.S. military. And it's been suggested by some analysts that this is why the campaign against Iran knocked out so many high-value targets early on, including Ayatollah Khamenei, who was taken out on day one.
Yeah.
And his successor shortly thereafter, and Khamenei's son, as we mentioned last week in our episode titled Weekend at Khamenei's, at this point still has not made a public appearance, and there's some suggestions he may not still be among the living.
The good news is that they've got many flat pack versions of him.
Right.
And you just need, a little bitty Allen wrench, and you can
assemble a new Ayatollah.
Yeah.
Peter Thiel was in Rome this week, last Sunday. He delivered a set of 4 lectures at the Renaissance era Palazzo Orsini Taverna, which is very close, walking distance from Vatican City. These lectures are the same ones he delivered recently in San Francisco over the course of 4 weeks, 4 Sundays. I think they were Sundays. Anyway, over the course of 4 weeks. Private invitation in Rome, closed to the press, no cameras allowed. And these lectures were on the Antichrist. The Catholic universities in Rome very quickly issued statements saying, we're not part of this. We don't believe what he's saying. It's the Vatican's official newspaper called Thiel, quote, an agent of chaos, end quote. There were protesters in the streets outside where he was delivering these lectures about the Antichrist. Now, Bob Maginnis wrote an op-ed piece, and I'm not sure where he's publishing it. He gave me a copy of this. I interviewed him just the other day. This will be for next weekend's View from the Bunker. And I highly recommend watching that episode or listening to it, because we had a little more time to talk than you get in a typical 28-minute, 30-second television episode, like for Skywatch TV. So he was able to explain why AI is an existential threat, how Christians can make use of AI without being drawn into it, but also talking about Peter Thiel. And he said in this, Peter Thiel is correct. His core warning during his lectures, and I'm not sure how Bob found out about this, since it was not, he was closed. And
he must have friends.
He's got friends. So Bob says his core warning, the Antichrist may not arrive as an obvious tyrant, but as a comforting administrator, one who promises global safety from catastrophic risk, artificial intelligence, nuclear war, climate disaster, and quietly consolidates power in the process. Scripture does not describe a figure who openly opposes God. It describes one who persuades the world he is acting for its good.
Or that he is God.
Right.
He will say he is Christ.
Yeah. And thus, well, yes, we should trust him because he's got our best interests in mind.
Mm-hmm.
That was Bob's warning. But what he added, though, is the irony here is that Thiel, in warning about the Antichrist, exempts the very systems that he is creating from the system the Antichrist will use to consolidate his power and control over all of us. He's got a huge blind spot.
Well, he does, and clearly he wants to make money. I mean, that's a large driving, impulse for many of these tech giants.
Right.
They want to make money, but you have to wonder whether or not there is, and I'd say the answer is yes, that they are spiritually driven. They may not know it. Their goal may be they see it as altruistic, when in fact it's not. Here's a story that also connects to this. Believe it or not, there is now an AI designed by Thiel's team, an AI cow collar. Yes, instead of just putting a tag in the ear, you can put a halter around the cow's face or neck, and it will constantly tell the rancher or farmer or, dairyman where they are.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was a kid, I've talked about this before many times, that I grew up on a farm for a while when I was a kid, and my job was to milk cows twice a day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the morning, they were in the barn. That was easy because that's where they slept. But then we let them out so they could graze and just get exercise. So they walked around on our property and it went way back through some woods. And so I had to go find them. And sometimes that was challenging. Sometimes I had to come back to my dad and admit that I hadn't found them. And he'd have to go out with me. And Dad always succeeded where I would fail, of course. It's just like when my car would make noises and I'd ask Dad if he could fix it. He'd say, well, it didn't make a noise, when I drove it. It's always that way. But it's important to know where your cattle are, particularly when they're calving. Because if they're calving in the winter, there's a big snowstorm, nobody expected, you need to know where they all are. And you can either drive your truck out there and bring the calf in if it needs help, or you ride horses back in the day. So this modern way of sort of geofencing and data analysis of where your herd is at all times, because some of these ranchers, they might have thousands of cattle over thousands of acres, many thousands of acres. So I can see where this would be a big thing. But now translate that to, it would really be nice if we could keep our kids and know where they are at all times.
Yeah.
Because, what if somebody tries to kidnap them?
Kidnap them, right? Yeah.
So let's find out where they are at all times. And you don't put a collar around a child. It's an implant.
Right. Yeah. It's like chipping your pets, except that it's got a longer range when it broadcasts,
Exactly.
so that you know where they are.
You don't have to put the reader right over their skin.
Internet of Things, as long as you've got a mesh network everywhere that is always connected to everything that's connected to the internet, which would be everything.
Well,
then
we've got
know,
Elon's satellites.
Yeah. That is likely going to require the next upgrade, 6G or 7G, which are already being developed. The standards are being developed for those to handle all of the IoT devices and implants that are pinging the system constantly.
Probably trillions of them.
Yeah, but it is coming, and that's one of the things that Bob Maginnis is warning about. Now, he is not a Luddite, which is why his most recent book, AI for Humanity's Future, argues that we need to learn how to harness these tools. He said he uses AI to prepare for him a daily briefing of news and information that he is that he finds useful for what he does. And since he is a consultant, his company called Maginnis Strategies, and he consults the Pentagon, he's got to stay informed on certain very specific topics. Might have to start figuring out how to do that for ourselves. We've got some news aggregators, but they pull in everything from specific sources. And if we had something that would kind of sharpen that a little bit, to hear the stories that you will find most interesting, that would save us some time. I will admit I've used and do use AI for research purposes. Here, point me to sources for, the history, for example, of the Dreyfus Affair.
Yeah.
Which was a very famous historical event in the late 19th century in France that really exposed the level of anti-Semitism or Jewish hatred, or hatred of Jews, I should say, inside the French military at that point in time. But then, go and check the sources that it cites yourself to make sure I'm not letting AI make the decisions for me. I'm not letting it write for me.
It's funny you should mention that, because there are some individuals who are allowing AI to sharpen their writing. It's built into Word, Microsoft Word.
I know. I turned it off. It was darn annoying.
I know. That's what I thought.
Copilot saying, "Do you want me to help you with this?"
No,
shut
go
up.
away. Yeah, exactly. But there was a story out this morning of a book that's been pulled from shelves because it was determined that the author didn't write it. It was ghostwritten by AI.
Yeah. We've seen examples of things like this hitting Amazon like within a day. For example, the day after Charlie Kirk's death, there were books about, there were books about the plot to, and like, how did that get published within a day? Clearly not a traditional publisher. No author would have had time to write it within 24 hours.
No.
It was an AI-generated book that somebody slapped their name on, and they were hoping to make a few bucks. So, yeah, it is. AI can be abused and is being abused. And, of course, the other danger with AI is that people are increasingly using AI for companionship and for not just life guidance, but for spiritual guidance. Your
mother is lives at a beautiful place in Marionville called the Ozark Methodist Manor, and they take great care of her. They have specific training for end-stage Alzheimer's, and they know exactly how to take care. And they're doing a beautiful job with your mother. One of the you and I got her a weighted stuffed animal because it really does help. It's not just children that benefit from that sort of quote-unquote companion. Your mother previously had a sheep, a little lamb, and now we're giving her a sloth.
Yeah.
It's adorable.
It's very cute, yes.
But you can also buy those that have heartbeats or they have that looks like they're breathing. Now put an AI inside that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that companion, and it doesn't have to be a humanoid companion. It could be a pet.
Yeah.
It could even look like your beloved pet who's passed away.
Right. Right. That will be coming, and there will be people. I mean, take that to the extreme. AI into a very lifelike humanoid
Or child.
Yeah. And trying to be delicate about the way I say this so that we don't get flagged by an algorithm, but most of the advances, technological advances,
Go beyond companionship.
go beyond companionship. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And you put an AI in it so that it responds in a way that the owner of the doll
Specifically wants, exactly.
Right.
I think our
that is,
listeners figured that out.
you can get where we're going with this.
Yep.
Use your imagination, and yes, pretty dark, and that's probably
But
already
the
happening.
doll, the companion, whatever
Right.
you want to call this artificial construct, can be whatever age you want it to be.
Yep. In fact, that was included in a television series out of the UK several years ago called Humans, where human, say, female companions for hire had been replaced by cyborgs, AI-powered cyborgs.
Yeah, and they were
And
beautiful.
one of them glitched and decided she didn't like being used and abused anymore, and began
She unalived some
several
humans.
of her clients, which was not supposed to happen. It's similar to the plot of the Isaac Asimov story, I, Robot, which was turned into a film starring Will Smith. What happens if the robots decide that because the AI powering them decides that the biggest problem on planet Earth is we humans, and this came up in the conversation with Bob Maginnis. They decide that we're just consuming a whole bunch of resources and not really producing much of anything. We're kind of a problem to be removed.
Well, you also get into the era of AI rights.
Yeah.
If an AI does create a novel, does the AI get credit? Does
Own
the AI
intellectual
get
property.
paid?
Right.
Yeah. And
Are they persons?
yes.
And this is where Wesley J. Smith, who's a bioethicist who I haven't talked to in years, early on in my podcast, 2009,
He was on
2010,
there
I
a lot.
interviewed him several times. But he
I
has
bet
been
he's got a Substack. I'm going to look.
he's been out there very early writing about this, warning that if we create a category of non-human persons like AI or, say, chimpanzees or dolphins and porpoises and whales, what have you, or even, some very liberal courts have decided to create grant personhood status to rivers. It's nuts, I know. But if you create a category of non-human persons, then you can also create non-person humans,
Yes.
like humans who are catatonic or comatose. Say they no longer are persons under the law, and therefore they can be unalived without any legal consequences. And that is the direction we're going, sadly. Wanted to jump to another category because this news came out overnight, and I think it's rather important geopolitically,
Okay.
which is the fact that Iran launched a couple, perhaps three, intermediate range ballistic missiles, or IRBMs, instead of intercontinental ICBMs,
Yeah.
at the island of Diego Garcia.
Yes.
Now, Diego Garcia is an island that the United States has used as an airfield from which long-range bombers, B-52s, can be launched for strikes on various targets in Eurasia for probably 60 years. There was a recent dust-up because the islands technically fall under the dominion of the United Kingdom. And Sir Keir Starmer and the Labour government in London didn't want to let the United States use Diego Garcia. In fact, they wanted to give the island
Of
back.
Chagos, at least,
Yeah.
to Mauritius.
Which would then have probably excluded the United States from being able to use Diego Garcia anymore. It's an island in the Indian Ocean, if you're wondering where it is. And it is quite a distance from Iran, something like...
It's a long way away.
Yeah, where did I... Well, let's see, I'm going to go back to my notes here on X to... Okay. It's Tehran to Diego Garcia is about 2,361 miles. The reason this is significant, and by the way, there was no damage at the island. One of them was intercepted by a U.S. Navy destroyer firing an anti-missile missile. The other one failed mid-flight. The Iranians were not supposed to have any missiles with this kind of range.
No.
Nowhere near this range. So the reason this is significant is because if they could strike at Diego Garcia, it means that they likely have missiles that could strike any of the major European capitals, including Berlin, Paris, London, any of the other. And this suggests that perhaps President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu had access to intelligence information not available to these so-called experts.
Or to Joe Kent.
Or to Joe Kent, right. Those who said Iran is not a threat. They can't even even if they had nuclear warheads, they couldn't launch them that would hit anybody except Israel.
Well, the intel that has been released, and whether or not the full intel has been released, I can't say, but allegedly they had 11, the capability to create 11 warheads that were nuclear. Yeah,
that was reported by Steve Witkoff, one of President Trump's special envoys, trying to work out a deal with the Iranian negotiators. He said the negotiators told us right up front the first time we met, we got enough to make 11 weapons.
Okay, they've got medium-range missiles. They could put nuclear payloads in them, and this would be a bad idea.
Yeah.
For Europe, for the entire Arab region, for the entire world.
Right.
And since I've used the word world, you and I have talked about whether or not, we've discussed it on here as well as other platforms, whether or not we're seeing the beginnings to World War III. And I would say entirely possible if historians looking 50 years down the line look back and they go, well, this is when World War III began, just like World War I allegedly began with the assassination of an archduke.
Right.
World War II, allegedly, the invasion of Poland. Those wars started long before that.
Right. In fact, that was a response that you gave to Jim Baker for the upcoming programs, and we'll post a note to our social media sites when
they're available,
when those programs go out for the Jim Baker show. But he asked if you thought World War III, that we were on the edge of World War III, and you said flat out it's already begun. And I agree. I think World War III, if you wanted to point to a beginning date, it was when Russia invaded Ukraine.
I think so too.
Yeah.
In fact, you could even back up to 2014.
Yes, because the conflict between Russia and Ukraine actually goes back to 2014. And the Maidan Revolution that was sponsored and funded by the United States Department of State.
Yes.
Remember Victoria Nuland and, F the EU. We've got our man that we want to sit in the presidential chair in Ukraine.
And wasn't Hunter Biden involved in some of those alleged negotiations?
No.
Well, there was and maybe I'm misremembering, but I recall that Hunter Biden allegedly made a bunch of money, and some of it had to go to the big guy, according to an email.
That was...
it was a telephone conversation.
Because Joe Biden was appointed by Barack Obama, the point man for Ukraine policy.
Right.
And Hunter Biden then, because Ukrainians understood that they needed to woo Joe Biden in order to get what they wanted out of the United States.
Right.
Gave Hunter Biden a position on the board of directors for Burisma, which was the largest natural gas company in Ukraine. He was getting paid like $80,000 a month.
But I would say that this is connected. It was during the Obama administration.
Right.
When you look at support for a country, you have to ask why.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we doing this?
Well,
and oftentimes it's because of oil or gas or some other money-making venture.
Yeah. The Burisma was simply involved in the transit of Russian natural gas through Ukraine. The pipeline went through Ukraine
But
to
it did go through Ukraine.
Hungary and other nations, and they were, getting rich off the transit fees. Hunter, I don't think he's
disappeared, hasn't he?
He's gone very quiet, which I think is smart for him. Just hide, stay out of the limelight. He was not involved in any of the negotiations. I don't think Joe Biden was there, but he was also grifting. It was allegedly, we have to say.
Yeah.
But
a lot of politicians do that.
Come out of office with a lot more money than you'd expect given their salaries.
Yep.
More money than their salaries can account for.
Yeah.
So, but yes, the question is why the United States, at least until Trump took office, and especially Europe, is so bound and determined to provoke Russia into a war over Ukraine.
It has been for a long time.
Right.
In fact, associating Trump with Russia then made him even more of a bad guy.
There was just a story that came out within the past week or so that intercepted intelligence within, and this is reported by John Solomon, a really good investigative journalist. His news site is called justthenews.com.
Oh, yeah, I've gone to there a lot.
Yeah, John Solomon does really good work. He said that there was intercepted intel that was just now made available to the Trump administration that Ukrainian officials were trying to interfere in the 2020 election to make sure that Trump didn't get elected because they didn't like the way he was dealing with their situation during his first term.
Well, that was done on the sly.
Yeah.
But do you remember during the 2024 election that Keir Starmer openly said...
It was the 24 election they were trying to interfere with.
Keir Starmer just openly said he was going to send 100 operatives over here. Yeah. Which is one of the reasons that Trump really doesn't trust him.
Doesn't like Starmer at all. There's also intel that has been reported over the last few months that the Chinese were also involved in trying to tilt the election away from Donald Trump in favor of Kamala Harris.
We have talked about, and there's not time in this program to really
we're
get
about
into
10 minutes left.
There's an advisor to President Putin named Alexander Dugin. And again, the Dugin. He is a globalist who believes in what you have described as a multipolar world where China is big, the United States maybe is big, definitely Russia is big. So you've got tension that keeps the world in order, I suppose, because it isn't just one conglomerate world.
Right. But the United States is no longer the world's lone superpower.
Yeah, he wanted to replace it with a pan-Rus movement, which means that he wanted Russia to control at least Europe, if not
Eurasia,
more than that. Yeah.
Everything from China to Britain.
Sort of there's a book that calls him Putin's brain, but I would say he's more like Putin's Rasputin. Because he is an occultist.
Yeah. We talked about him a bit a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
But occultist is correct. He is on video giving a presentation where he essentially eulogized Aleister Crowley. Crowley, of course, died in the 40s. So it's not like he was a recent passing. But Dugin, the reason he was eulogizing or praising Alexander Crowley is because Crowley's magical system, Thelema, was then developed by Kenneth Grant, who had been Crowley's personal assistant and secretary, into a form of chaos magic called the Typhonian tradition. Typhon being the Greek chaos monster.
Yes, and Dugin has a book. It was his first book, I think, that has the symbol for chaos right there on the cover.
Right.
He's not hiding it.
Right. Most of us think of chaos as a bad thing, but Dugin sees Western civilization, led by the United States, as fundamentally corrupt. Look at the way they've embraced the LGBTQIA plus movement. Look at the way they are promoting, sexuality, sexualizing their children.
Leering centers.
Leering centers. And so he thinks that Western civilization needs to be basically blown up so that we can start over. So for him, chaos is purification.
Yes. Burn it all down, order out of chaos.
Right. And the new order should be imposed by a moral order like the Russian Orthodox Church or the Roman Catholic Church.
Says the occultist.
Says the occultist, yeah. But in Russia, there's a long history of mysticism connected to the Roman Catholic, or connected to the Russian Orthodox Church.
Which is where you go and you get Rasputin, because he was allegedly a monk. He did train as a monk, but then he started following a teacher who said, the more you sin, the greater the forgiveness.
Right.
The greater God is, if the more you sin. And so Rasputin embraced that.
Wait a minute. Didn't Paul write something about that? Oh, no. Just set that aside.
Sure
Paul didn't know what he was talking about. Yeah. Should we sin more so that grace shall abound? By no means.
But Rasputin was an advisor to the Tsar and his family through the Tsar's wife.
Right. Yeah.
And she was convinced that he was a holy man that was keeping their son alive.
Yeah. Well, Rasputin, Dugin doesn't have that quite kind of influence over Putin as far as we know, but at least in terms of his geopolitical theories, those are being taught in the Russian military academies, because that book that you reference is now part of the curriculum. So Dugin and his ideas, whether they know it or not, and this is what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, are being propagated by the likes of Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, Kelly, Kelly, not
Something.
Kelly.
I know who you're talking about. Megyn Kelly.
Megyn Kelly, thank you. Where we need to subsume this Protestant idea of personal accountability and liberty needs to be subsumed into a
Catholic universal.
Right. Yes. What they call,
which is what the word Catholic means. It means universal.
Yeah, and there's a term for it, Catholic integralism, where we need to, get rid of this idea that the Protestants have that, sola scriptura, and start listening to the church again and go back to sort of a medieval way of life where even the kings of Europe were subject to the will and the dictates of the Pope.
Which I think does speak to a possible beginning of World War III as being 2014.
Yes. Yeah. This, as far as Putin is concerned.
Yeah.
The retaking of Kyiv is sort of a spiritual quest, because Saint Vladimir, or Vladimir the Great, who was the first leader of the Rus, became the Russian people, to be baptized. That took place in Kyiv, or Kiev, as the Russians would say. The Varangian people came down from Sweden. They were Vikings, and they set up a kingdom in Kiev, and they were proselytized, converted, and that was under Vladimir the Great in the 10th century. So Kiev is sort of like the spiritual beginning of the Russian
Orthodox
people
Church,
and the Russian Orthodox Church. So there's more to it than just geopolitics. There's theopolitics involved, which is what we do on PID Radio.
It is indeed, but here's another theopolitical connection. The Japanese prime minister was just visiting President Trump, and a couple of things happened that I just thought are noteworthy. One of them is that he showed her the hallway where all the presidential pictures were hung, and of course, auto pen.
Instead of President Biden, it's President Otto Penn.
Yeah. And she laughed and laughed and laughed. And as they were having such a good time, he did request, is it possible that Japan can help us out in this action against Iran's hegemony, or attempted hegemony, and
the Strait of Hormuz.
Of Hormuz, and could you help out with that? And she did indeed offer to send Godzilla.
Yeah.
That's on X. And if it's on X,
it must be
then
true.
It must be true.
Well,
there's even a picture of Godzilla wading through the strait.
Yeah, with a tanker sailing in the foreground, protected by Godzilla. Yeah. Godzilla offers you his protection.
But here's where you get to the connection to Peering into Darkness. And because we've talked about this many times, and we highly recommend watching Godzilla, King of Monsters.
Yeah.
Because in that, he is described as a titan.
Yeah.
And all of the other monsters are titans.
Yeah.
These are the rightful rulers of Earth.
The original and rightful rulers of Earth.
This is a spiritual film, whether the producers knew it or not.
Yeah, in fact, I talked about this with Judd, Doug, and Brian when we had our discussion last week for this week's Iron and Myth. And we will probably discuss Godzilla, King of Monsters in one of our upcoming programs, because when I explained to them why we think that film is really interesting from a theological standpoint, in that it depicts the conflict between Godzilla and Ghidorah, the three-headed dragon, as the conflict between Shemiyaza, the leader of the sons of God in Genesis 6, and Satan.
Yes.
And showed them the symbolism, or described the symbolism to them. Godzilla's lair in the abyss, Tartarus, with all of the pseudo-Mesopotamian iconography leading to, including the Lamassu, except instead of having the human heads on the bull-like bodies, they were Godzilla heads. And they had not seen the film.
Oh, my goodness. That surprises me.
My dudes, you have to watch that movie.
A multi-headed dragon that in the original universe of kaiju in Japan was to have 7 heads, but they couldn't operate 7 heads.
Or 8.
Because
I think in the Japanese myths it was 8, but still.
In some of the images you see more heads than 3. Well, it does have 3 heads in the films, the more recent films.
Yeah.
But there is a shot of it taking over a mountain peak, and in the foreground is a cross.
Right. The imagery cannot be more clear.
It is shown for quite a while on screen, and then later on you see it on a screen inside the sub where they're all having a talk.
Right.
If you missed it earlier, this is important.
Yeah. And the names of the titans that are waking up and breaking out of their hibernation, emerging from the abyss, as it were. Many of them have biblical names like Abaddon and Apollyon and Behemoth and so on. So it's clear that the writer of the film, at least, if nothing else, was just mining the Bible and then Mesopotamian cosmology, which overlaps with the Bible,
right,
for a storyline. But I think principalities and powers perhaps whispering in the ears of the writer and the director and the producers. So, yeah, think of it in those terms, that you've got Godzilla and the Titans presented as the good guys, first of all, and Satan as the evil guy. But the Titans are going to return and, defeat Satan. And so that's good, right?
And it's kind of interesting in a way, and I know this is going slightly long, that the connection with Crowley to Dugin, but Crowley also heavily influenced Lovecraft.
Yes.
Whether Lovecraft ever met him, I don't know, but heavily influenced him.
Yep.
Lovecraft came from the Northeast United States and was sort of soaking in that 19th century spirituality movement.
Right.
And he wrote of these monsters and Cthulhu, sort of a multi-tentacled something.
Living in the abyss, the bottom of the sea.
Dead but dreaming.
Right.
Dreaming,
Dead but dreaming, And waiting for the stars to align so that it would then summon, because Cthulhu was supposed to be the priest of the great old ones, that he would summon then from space,
Yeah.
to return to Earth.
Yeah.
And woe unto the human race when that happened, because we would be nothing more than acolytes or perhaps lunch.
Yeah, would be lunch.
So, and then Lovecraft's work, because he included pseudo-archaeology, like, the pyramids must have been created by these great old ones, was adapted by Eric von Daniken into Chariots of the Gods.
Yeah.
And then Zecharia Sitchin came along with the 12th planet, and now you've got all the UFO true believers believing that the gods of the ancient Mesopotamians, Enlil and Enki and Inanna and Sin and Shamash, et cetera, were just space travelers from Nibiru.
And here's the thing. Many of you listening to this, you are geeks like Derek and I are. And I think geeks are really important. A lot of geeks do not believe, in Jesus. So this is a great way to open that door to ministry to your geek kids, your grandkids, your friends, whatever.
True, yes.
But we see what's going on because science fiction, televised movie science fiction, a lot of that stuff connects in. And the horror stuff written by Lovecraft and others, a lot of that stuff connects into the Bible.
Yeah.
If you believe in the Genesis 6 event
Right.
as being not human, but angels, watchers.
Yeah. And clearly
Sometimes, Space Brothers is how the sci-fi.
but fundamentally
depicted
inhuman entities that have been interacting with humans
exactly
since the beginning.
You and I believe that these were actual angels who left their proper home, their first estate in the King James, and came here.
That is, if we Christians use the language that say the UFO true believers use, then I think we can begin to open their eyes to see there are biblical explanations for these things. Yeah, hey, we believe that Earth has been visited by inhuman entities for years. I mean, centuries, millennia, just like you. And hey, that, the French ufologist who was...
the one who determined that it was...
interdimensional instead of extraterrestrial.
Yes. Wasn't he in...
Close Encounters of the Third Kind? No, but there was a French director who represented his character.
Yeah, that's true. It's driving me crazy. I can't think of his name right now.
Yeah, it'll come to me after we're finished.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And you guys are all shouting it, I know.
Yeah. I even cited his work in Destination Earth regarding the Dulce base, which, he made the brilliant observation. You're telling me there's a city the size of Manhattan under the desert of northern New Mexico. Who takes out the trash? Where's the heat signature?
If it's incinerated, where's the heat signature?
Yeah. Anyway, his language offers, an opportunity for Christians to say, yeah, okay, we know what these monsters are. We know what these extraterrestrials are. We believe in inhuman entities that have been interacting with humanity since the beginning of creation.
We as in Christians.
Yeah, we Christians. So we can at least open the conversation that way and say, show that, in fact, the Jewish religious scholars who translated the Hebrew Bible into Greek 200 years before Jesus was born, they used the word titans in the Bible in various places connected to the giants of Genesis 6. They understood the connection. The titans are not the giants themselves, but the titans propagated the giants by commingling with human women. The titans are the watchers.
Yes.
And so, anyway. Yeah,
so
human history is a lot more fascinating than we've been told. And the Ancient Aliens guys see part of the picture, but they refuse to see the biblical narrative and the biblical explanation for it.
That's so true.
So they don't get the whole picture.
And it's tragic.
Yeah.
To be so close and miss it.
And what's going on around the world today with the wars and rumors of war? Jesus prophesied this in Matthew 24.
Signs and wonders.
Yeah. Signs and wonders.
We're getting close.
Many coming in my name, claiming to be the Christ. So, yeah, a lot of things happening, and it's easy to get distressed, become depressed, looking at the world in the rising darkness.
But it's exciting because the Lord has chosen you listening to this. The Lord has chosen you to live right now.
Yeah.
I mean, many Christians say, "Oh, I wish I could have lived in the first century and walked with Jesus." Well, He's coming back, and it's like we're living in the first century, except it isn't His first, time of being incarnated as human. He's coming back. This is His return, the return of Messiah, Jesus Christ, and it's exciting that we get to live now.
Amen to that. So whatever may come with the situation with Iran, whatever may happen with the Ukraine-Russian war situation, China and Taiwan, Bob Maginnis is on record as saying he thinks China will move against Taiwan within the next 18 months probably. Mm-hmm. Given their demographic changes, the fact that China's population is shrinking, that's probably true.
I think that probably is true.
Yeah.
And Bob knows far more things than he shares with us. We ask him questions once in a while, and he just sort of, I can't tell you that.
Yeah. If I did, I'd have to,
Yeah. We don't want, I like you, so he won't. But exciting time to be alive. Speaking of being alive,
yes,
we are going to be alive at a couple of live events, one of them being a conference in Ohio, not too far from Dayton. It's on the northwest side of Dayton. It's a beautiful little area called Brookville, Ohio. Great venue. Neil Peterson's church.
Yes, the Harvest Revival Center.
Oh, it is an amazing congregation. We love the music. Is awesome.
Yes.
Really gets everybody going. We are going to be speaking. I think we're both speaking there. You are definitely going to be speaking there. And I think, aren't you going to be talking about the anti-Semitism angle?
I will be
Jews?
discussing, some of the research connected to my forthcoming book, War of the Watchers, Book 1. Mm-hmm. And I haven't exactly decided how to focus that talk yet, but it will be.
It'll be incredible. I know.
It'll be part of that book.
You don't want to miss this.
So,
and if you cannot be there, then you can watch it via the live stream.
Streaming video is available. Speakers include Carl Gallups, Carl Teichribb, John Haller. His weekly prophecy update from Fellowship Bible Chapel. Find their YouTube channel, Fellowship Bible Channel in Columbus, Ohio. Haller is Haller. His news analysis each week with relation to Bible prophecy is just excellent. Dr. Greg Reed, spiritual warrior of whose life experience would make a movie.
And we love him.
Yep. Tom Hughes, Bible prophecy expert. Olivier Melnick, Messianic Jew. Just talked with John Haller this past week. Talked with Mike Spalding, I should say, this past week. And, of course, Dr. Mike Spalding. So that is quite a lineup, and it is an honor to be a part of that gathering. We love Mike and Kathy Spalding, so we are very happy to be there. And then just 2 weeks after that, we will be in our backyard here, Springfield, Missouri, for the Remnant Rising Conference 2.0, as we find out the Oasis Hotel and Convention Center in Springfield is a wonderful facility.
It's a beautiful campus. They have a wonderful restaurant right there on the campus. But if you want rent a car or you live locally, you can drive to a whole lot of places. Bring your family and visit the aquarium, Shed's Aquarium.
Oh, yeah, the wonders Sheds, of wildlife. Shed is Chicago.
Shed is Chicago.
Yeah.
But this is better than Sheds.
It is. It's been voted by a poll at USA Today the best aquarium in the United States. But it's more than just an aquarium because they've got an aviary there with owls, which my mother found.
Oh, I know.
Some pictures from a few years ago. My sister came up from South Carolina, and I took Mom to Wonders of Wildlife, Mom and her friend Linda. And it was just a wonderful day because they've just got some wonderful displays there in the aquarium section. But then you get to see, alligators, and there's a tank at one spot where they've got rays, manta rays and smaller little rays swimming around in circles, and you can reach in and you can pet them. They've removed the stingers, so
right,
it's safe.
so you're not going to get hurt.
Right. But it's just a wonderful, wonderful way to spend a day with the family. And, of course, man, as we've said before, it's also connected to Bass Pro #1.
Oh, I know, the big old Bass Pro up there.
So if you want to make a pilgrimage to Bass Pro #1, guys, this is your opportunity.
There's a Buc-ee's.
Yeah, just 10 minutes away.
Big old Buc-ee's.
And straight down US 65 to Branson and some of the wonderful
Silver Dollar City.
Silver Dollar City, a wonderful theme park with an Ozarks theme to it. Lots of handmade crafts and artisans there. It's not like, back in the day, I enjoyed going to Great America or Six Flags.
Yeah, Six Flags.
But you go to this place and it's got trees all over, and it feels like you're in the Ozarks. It's a different kind of theme park. So Silver Dollar City is really wonderful. Speakers at the Hear the Watchman conference, Remnant Rising conference, Jamie Walden, Joe Horn of Skywatch TV, Tony Merkel, host of the Confessionals podcasts, John Pounders, host of Now You See TV, Vicki Joy Anderson, Kenny C., Tracy Tennant, who's here in the Ozarks now, Josh Tolley, our friend Dave Hodges, host of the Common Sense Show, David Paxton, Patrick
it's a great
McCurdy. Just a wonderful
and Derek
lineup.
Gilbert.
So looking forward to that. Oh, and Sharon K. Gilbert.
Yes. And I don't really know what the
You're on the poster,
lineup
so
is going to
you're
be. I am on the poster wearing a cowboy hat. So there you go.
Yeah. So there we are. Information and registration there at hearthewatchman.com. By the way, the Go Therefore Conference, gothereforeconference.com.
Also, we still plan, as of today, on going to Israel in October, but there is a possibility we will reschedule those dates.
Yeah.
Given that the kinetic activity in the Middle East seems to be widening.
Yeah.
It may go on a little longer than had originally been planned. And I think it was originally going to be 3 to 6 weeks. According to
it may
President
last a little longer. And of course, with Hezbollah launching rockets from the north, one of the villages that we visited a couple of years ago, Metula, which is the northernmost village in Israel, got hit by a couple of Hezbollah rockets yesterday.
Sweet little village.
Yeah.
We will let you know if you have already signed up to go with us. Thank you very much for that. We look forward to it. But we will let everybody know if we change the dates. And it has nothing to do with thinking there will be war then, because I don't think the war will last. I think this phase of the beginnings of World War III, I don't think that they're going to stretch out into October. At least I pray they don't.
Yeah.
Because it's very, very difficult on everybody in that region right now because a lot of the planes don't fly. The economy is tanking because people cannot work when you're constantly running into your shelter.
Yeah, and 10% of the population has been mobilized.
And tourism.
I don't know if it's quite that many now, but I know that in the past, when the Hamas war first started, that was the number.
A lot of people depend upon tourism as well.
And the tourism industry right now is practically nil.
Yeah. So if we change the dates, then we will let you know because we want people to register and feel comfortable about it.
Yeah.
But Derek and I are going to talk to the Lipkins probably in the next week or two.
Yeah. So that is what is upcoming.
And now the old geezer report.
Yeah.
I'm doing really well. And I will say this. Those of you who are asking about Book 9 of the Red Wing Saga, thank you very much for telling me that you love these characters and the story so much that you anticipate Book 9 with great delight. I'll put it that way. And I am continuing to work on it. It's very slow, primarily because my first duty, as far as I'm concerned, my first thought, top of my list every day is, what does Derek need? And Derek, and this is going to be his part of the OG report, Derek is going through some stuff where he can't always do stuff on his own. So I just want to always be available for him. So my writing is sporadic and usually in bursts.
Yeah. And she has been a great help, as there are things that, I used to take for granted, many of us take for granted, that are either more difficult for me or just not possible for me. If you've watched our recent appearances on Skywatch TV, you'll notice that I'm tending to wear things that are a little less formal, no more shirt and tie. And that's just because buttons and tie, working the necktie.
Yeah, your hands are really becoming affected.
And it's just
but not your brain.
No. Thankfully, it has not affected me as far as brain fog goes, which is with many people who suffer from CIDP, which is the term for the range of symptoms I exhibit, suffer from brain fog. Mm-hmm. And thankfully, I've been spared that. My hands now often shake so badly. The tremors are so severe that typing is becoming more and more difficult.
It's difficult to actually straighten your
Oh, yeah, I've got a bad case of trigger finger on my right index finger. It's starting to affect my left one as well.
Yeah.
But good news is, again, when I was in the hospital in February, I got the first 5-day course of infusions, which is the frontline treatment for what I have. It's basically infusions of immunoglobulin, which are antibodies that basically tell my antibodies to, stand down, stop attacking the nerves. From what I've read, because I've not noticed improvement since that first course, but that's not unusual. It's usually after the second course things start to improve. And then I'll be needing these 5-day courses of treatment. Sometimes they shorten it to 3 days once your body gets used to, taking in, 30 grams or whatever it is of this stuff. The 5-day course of treatment every 3 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, it shows just a lot of improvement. So I may be able to recover some of these skills.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, even if it's just, recovering my balance would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Making it easier to get around would be wonderful. But even if I just get back, the fine motor skills, that would be really helpful because typing is a key part of how we work.
Exactly. And that's the more recent symptoms. So it probably will improve the more recent symptoms first because you've had longer degradation of the myelin in your
lower legs and feet.
Yeah. We do a lot of doctoring, not just for Derek, but for me because I have dry eye and stuff like that. I have to see a rheumatologist soon. So things are it's a new way of life for us. Yeah. And we're just thankful to the Lord that we still get to do what we do.
As long as we can think and speak, we can still do this. Think, speak, read, research, write, take notes. But it is the reason that we put our home on the market because with the property that we've got here, yard work is difficult. Mm-hmm. Home maintenance, it has to be hired out for just about anything. Got to call a neighbor when we need help getting up on a ladder to fix a light bulb. Great
place to live, though. If you have ever dreamed about moving to the Ozarks, or if you already live in the Ozarks, you just thought, boy, I'd love to get out of the city and just get out into the country and maybe have some chickens and goats and things like that. This property is ideal for that.
Yeah. We were blessed that we moved here before real estate values went bananas because we actually bought this house, 2,200 square foot, 4-bedroom, with a sitting room off the main.
For a very good price.
Reasonable price, less than what we sold our home in a subdivision in a small town in Illinois for.
Right. So we're going to get a little bit, if we sell the house, we'll be able to buy something smaller, downsize. Mm-hmm. And that's our goal, get closer to the doctors. So again, if you are interested, you can just go to Realtor and you'll see that we are on the market. It's 10 acres. It's got that really nice barn. So if you are in ministry, whether it's music ministry or podcasting or whatever, or if you just want to have a man cave or a she-shack, as they call it.
There you go. If you're interested in getting the listing, send us a note, info@gilberthouse.org, or send us a message through Facebook.
Yep, you can also just go to Realtor and look in this area.
Yeah.
Our zip code is 65656, in case you're wondering.
There you go. So that is what is going on. And tomorrow we're back to our Gilbert House Fellowship Bible study. Next Sunday, let's see, when is Resurrection Sunday?
It is coming. Passover starts, oddly enough, on April 1st.
Okay,
it is
April
a month
5th.
Later, maybe?
Yeah,
No,
April 5th. So, okay. So we will be here next Sunday, which is Palm Sunday. But tomorrow we will be back with our regular Bible study. And tomorrow evening, Iron and Myth number 48.
Ooh,
been doing
you
this
guys
for
have been
4
going.
years. Yeah, more than 4 years.
So is there a Jubilee when you get to 50?
Hadn't thought about that. We should. That'll be the one where we talk about Godzilla.
Of course.
Tomorrow night's episode, we'll talk about Melchizedek. Was he human?
Oh, that's such a good. Oh, it's amazing you've gone this far and not even addressed
not talked about Melchizedek. So yeah, that's a really interesting, and there's some really interesting scriptures that I had not considered pulling together. And our friend Mac Dominic, who's got a book called Cosmic Conflict, Jerusalem versus Babylon. And he shared a couple of chapters from it when he heard that we were going to talk about Melchizedek, and deals with Melchizedek as the pre-incarnate Christ. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the questions we addressed. There's a lot of good stuff in that program for tomorrow night on A View from the Bunker, the Iron and Myth episode number 48. So,
oh, wonderful. I'm so glad you guys are continuing to do that series.
Yeah. So until next time, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and you know what? We love you. We love you very much. Thank you for being here with us. Bye-bye, everybody.
PID radio is on the air. Politics, prophecies, and conspiracy.